So I'll get started and we'll go from there. So obviously this week was cultural, environmental and social factors affecting weight loss. And I'm actually going to start with a simple question of why do we eat how we eat? So this might seem a simple question, but what I'm actually going to talk about today is probably going to have more of an impact on people's chances of successfully being able to implement any sort of diet change in their life than anything else I've spoke about over the last few weeks. For the simple reason that it's all well and good knowing the science, but if things were that simple, then everyone would be in great shape. It's just because you know why something works doesn't mean you're in a position to implement it. It's actually one of the areas that's most often either ignored or forgot about when people approach training. And it's also an area that I'm actually quite passionate about with regards to nutrition. And I could probably also call it the hard truth, because what I'm about to explain is pretty much why most people will struggle to change away from the way that they naturally find themselves. So when you're not following a diet for a few weeks, when you're not training, when you're just being you, what sort of position do you find yourself in? And that's because it's part of who you are. The way that you eat is as individual as you are. One of the examples that I use to actually try to explain this theory is, I don't know if any of you have actually heard of the term called idiolect. So your idiolect it's the way that you talk, it's the way that you write, it's the language that you use, it's the phrases that you use, and it's something that you develop your whole life. Obviously, the way that you talk is something that you've developed from your first word up until the age that you are now. And it's actually, to explain how individual this actually is, it's actually used in forensic linguistics. It was one of the techniques used to help identify the Unabomber, for example. It's almost as individual as your fingerprint. No two people speak exactly the same way that you speak. So obviously you develop that from your parents, from where you go to school, if you go to university. So two people could be born into the same household but use language and speak entirely different, have totally different ways and means about them, because one of them went to uni here, one of them went to uni there, so many different things. And all these little things slowly throughout your life, all these influences, they will build the way that you talk. And you don't think about the way that you talk. That's just part of you. It's part of who you are. And in many ways, the way that you eat is exactly the same. It's not something that you just think, oh well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's you spent your entire life learning to eat the way that you eat now. And whether that's been through your house growing up, your school, just the people around you, all these little things contribute to the reason that you view food in the way that you view it. For example, the first person you sat with for your school dinner on your first day of primary school could potentially influence the way that you eat today. I know that seems daft, but it's all these little influences play a massive, massive part in just building up who you are. And in the way that you build up the way that you speak throughout your entire life, it's the same way as that you build up your relationship with food, and all these different influences and points throughout your life contribute to that. So it's not just something that you're going to be able to change instantly. This is why standard nutritional coaches fail. So another example, if I turned around to you now and said, right, so most of us are from the Northeast. So if I said to you, right, well, all of you people with Northeast accents, from this day onwards, I want you to speak with a Southern accent. How many people do you think could actually successfully implement that based on what I've just said? Could you go away now and start talking in a different accent? Some of you might not even be able to talk in the accent to start with. Some of you might be able to put it on, it might last 10 minutes, it might last 15 minutes. But if I sent you away and told you, right, I just want you to keep trying until you can do it, you're never, ever, ever going to be able to do it. And if you do, it's going to take an astronomical amount of time and effort. But chances are, because it's something that's ridiculously difficult, you'll just stop doing it. And that's basically the mechanism in which most people fail a diet. Because the way that they currently eat, the way that they've developed eating throughout their entire life is so far removed from what you're asking them to do then it's almost going to be impossible to go away and just implement that from the start. Obviously, diet retention, it's known that over 90% of diets fail. So pretty much every single person that has ever tried to change the way that they eat has failed, because their ties to what they know it's so strong and it's so ingrained into them that it's a really hard thing to change. So it's literally the habit of a lifetime. So if you think of smoking, I think it's something like 60% of all people who have ever smoked have managed to quit. And it normally takes, on average, about 30 attempts. And that's something that, yes, it's ingrained in you, but it's nowhere near ingrained into you to the extent which how you eat is. And obviously, depending on different people, depending on where you find yourself in terms of how far removed you are from where you want to be, that's going to give you an idea of how far away your current eating habits are from where you want to be. This isn't supposed to sound demoralising in any way. I'm trying to explain why if someone wants to change how they eat and you give them a diet plan, you might as well turn around to a drug addict and go, right then, stop taking drugs, and hope that they're going to walk away and from that moment on they're going to be clean. Well, of course not, because it's not that simple. And if it was, every person, there would be 100% success rate on dieting, not a 90% plus failure rate on dieting. So what's the answer? Well, obviously a different approach is required. Giving someone a diet plan clearly isn't going to be able to help them change how they eat when it's something that is so much a part of who they are. So the way that nutrition should be done, and it's the way that we try to do by educating you, by getting you to use the MyFitnessPal, by doing these seminars, is you try to give people the tools so that they can start to make small changes which eventually will build up and allow them to facilitate the change. But another example for you. So when I started secondary school in year 7, never in my life had I spoke a foreign language before. I spoke English, that's it. I'd been on holiday to Spain a couple of times, but I couldn't speak a word of any other language. And I started doing French. So when I walked into French, and the teacher stood there in front of this class of 11-year-olds who've never ever spoke the French language before, she didn't look at us and go, right, there's the French dictionary, speak French. Because obviously it's ridiculous, you know it's ridiculous. But if I'm just giving you a piece of paper with a few meals on, saying, right, there you go away, follow that, job done, you'll be able to get in any shape you want now, it's ridiculous. But so how do they do it? So you start with numbers, with letters, you'll start with small phrases, and that may take a year. It may take a full year just to sort of do all of those little things. Then you'll start building words, and then paragraphs, and then sentences, and eventually learn to talk. And then by the end of the 5 years you're at school, you've got a very, very limited grasp of the language anyway. You're still nowhere near speaking it, but you're closer than you were. And that's after 5 years. So why would changing how you eat be any different when it's as much a part of who you are as the way that you talk? And obviously, as I said before, with trying to better educate people rather than just, it's kind of like that whole give a man a fish, you'll feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, you'll feed him a lifetime. And without learning all these skills to be able to actually go away and change how you actually eat and the way that you eat and the reasons that you eat, then just expecting you to follow a diet plan is never ever going to result in long-term sustainable results. So obviously, let's actually look at the factors that make up the way you eat. Obviously, I've explained why that's so important and why it's such a difficult thing to change, but what actually plays a part in this. So I'll start with environment. So obviously this changes as you get older, but the first environment, it's obviously your home. It might be a grandparent's home, it might be school, obviously different relatives, and all these things. It's like from the moment you're born. In fact, there's even studies and bits of research that suggest that you can even develop tastes for certain foods depending on what your mother eats actually when she's carrying you. From the moment you're born, you don't know anything about how to eat. You don't know what you like, don't know what you don't like. You don't think, oh, it's a Friday night, I need me takeaway when you're in nappies. Every single thing you pick up, you're going to pick up from the people around you and and how your life is, what happens in your house, what happens in your school. And obviously a lot of the times people throughout the economic thing will say, oh well, people who come from a more affluent background have more chance of eating well and being in better shape. But really, the finances don't actually have anything to do with it, because it's as expensive to go and buy a McDonald's as it would be to cook a meal from scratch. But it just happens that depending on what your home environment's like, you're more likely to stray one way or the other. Things like mental health. How happy are you when you're at home when you're grown up? All these things they play a massive part in developing how you are going to eat. So again, with the environment, it's like, what's in your cupboard? And if you go into your cupboard now, and if you sit there and say, right, I'm someone who is wanting to make a massive change, I'm wanting to lose weight, I'm wanting to improve my health. Right, dear, go downstairs and go through your cupboards. Do your cupboards represent someone who is wanting to lose weight or make a successful change? And a lot of the time, it's like, why do you even buy half the stuff you buy? If you go in the shop every week and buy a loaf, like nothing doesn't matter with bread, for example, a loaf of bread and milk. It's always the joke, bread and milk, bread and milk. Everyone of a certain generation is obsessed with bread and milk. Why? Because when they were growing up, that was the most important thing to buy. It was in every single shop you were going to do. Like a big multi-bag of crisps. Why do most households have a massive 24-bag multi-bag of crisps? Because it's something that they've always done and that they'll always continue to do, because it's just, to them, it's normal. And this moves on to the culture. So, in your household, what is the culture? Do you have a takeaway every week? Do you cook home, like meals from scratch? Do you drink? I mean, an example for culture, I'm a prime example here. So, most of my family enjoy a drink. A big drink. They drink to socialise and they drink in the pub. So, growing up, that's perfectly normal to me. I enjoy going out for drinks, socialising, etc., etc. I wouldn't find it strange if someone said, oh, I went to the pub every night this week for a couple of pints after work. I wouldn't find that strange in the slightest. However, no one ever drank at home growing up in my life. That was just not something that was ever done. So when I could be walking to the pub and pass someone's bottle bin and see it full of drink in the house, and I'd look and think, Jesus, they're just sitting in the house just drinking. But because to me, culturally, that's just abnormal. It's not something that I would do. And it's the same with, if you all come from a family where you have a takeaway every week. It's absolutely standard to have a takeaway every week. Well, what you're going to do as you go through life, you're going to continue to have a takeaway every week, because that is part of the culture in which you've been brought up in. A more sort of extreme example is, if someone turned down, obviously we look at Asian countries and say they'll eat cats and dogs, and we all think that's absolutely unbelievable. How can you possibly, it should be banned, it's disgraceful that these people eat dogs. Well, yeah, but these countries might think it's disgraceful that we eat pigs or that we eat cows. And no one is right or wrong, because there is no right or wrong. It's just because one set of people have been brought up believing one thing, and one set of people have been brought up believing another thing. And it shows how ingrained these little things that we see every day become in our personality, to the point where we almost think they're our own opinions and our own beliefs, and they're not. It's because that's how strong the cultural influence actually has on you and on the things that you do. It's the same as things like religion. If you're brought up in a religious house who only eat certain products or don't eat certain things at certain times of the year, it's like, I'm not religious in the slightest, but my family have been previously. My girlfriend's family aren't religious. However, when it comes to Good Friday, you can't eat meat, it's Good Friday. Well, I've never been to church in 10 years, why wouldn't I eat meat? But it's just something that you do because it's something that's always been done around you, so you think it's normal. And you can start to see the pattern here. Everything you do with regards to food, when you're not thinking about food. Problem is, everyone's great when they're thinking about something. But you're not going to be thinking about something for every day for the rest of your life. It's like when you get up in the morning and you walk, you don't sit there and think, oh, I need to put my left leg in front of my right leg, and then I need to balance myself. You just walk. And if you had to think about it, it's like, it would become a chore. And that's the same. In order to actually get to the point where you can stay in the shape that you want to stay in all the time without yo-yoing, without having to diet, without stressing out all the time. You have to change your habits to the point in which it becomes normal rather than being a chore, because up until that point you're always going to struggle. Another one, social. So what's your social circle like? Again, it's like if you're wanting to get in shape and lose weight, and then every single week your friends are on the phone, oh well, let's go for a drink, let's go for a meal, oh I'll come over, we'll put a film on, we'll have a takeaway. Is that helping you? No, of course it's not. But how often does someone, I know it's a little bit different at the minute of lockdown, but someone rings and say, oh, we'll go for a walk. It's not going to happen as often. And why? Because as our society, that tends to be what we do. That is the way that we socialise. We socialise by eating, by drinking, and we have for years and years and years and years and years. But in terms of trying to get in shape, that's not necessarily a positive culture. If every time you go on a diet or try to improve what you're doing, you've got your mate text you at the end of the week saying, oh, how well, let's go for a meal. You might say no the first week, you might say no the second week. By the third week, you're just going to go and everything will be out the window again. And this is the cycle that we see repeat itself again and again and again and again when people are dieting. And it's why we see that 90% failure rate. Again, trying to build little habits. I know last year I did every single month, I set a habit for people to follow, and there were tiny little things. One habit might just be like, use MyFitnessPal every day. Every day, just track what you eat. I don't care what you're eating. I don't care if you're 1,000 calories over. Just get into the habit of tracking your food, because that's small and it's achievable. If you wake up on a Monday and go, right, this week I'm going to eat all clean foods, I'm going to track everything, I'm going to exercise 5 days a week, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do everything else. But you're not someone who does any of those things anyway, then you're going to have failed by Friday. But if you start the week and say, look, I know I don't eat perfectly, I know it's going to take a long time for me to actually be able to eat perfectly and get the way I want to do, but if this week I just say, right, well, this week I'm just going to put my food into MyFitnessPal. I'm not going to worry about what I'm eating, I'm not going to worry about the grams, I'm not going to worry about anything else, but this week alone, to start off, I'm just going to put my food into MyFitnessPal. If you manage to actually successfully do that for a couple of months, then you've actually started to build a habit that's going to become part of your new normal. We keep hearing that term all the time, the new normal, with regards to lockdown, the coronavirus. And again, it's when you're trying to change how you eat, you're trying to create a new normal, because your current normal wasn't working for you. It's not getting you to where you want to be. But as we've all experienced the difficulties over the last 8 weeks, creating a new normal isn't something that's easy to do. It's incredibly difficult. It's really difficult. Like the fact of going and see your parents, but from 5 or 6 meters away, not being able to go and talk to them and hug them. It's painful. It's different, because all your life you've been able to have these close relationships with these people, and now it's gone. And obviously, having to adapt to that's very difficult. And it's the same as anything. Anytime you're trying to change what is normal to you and what has been normal to you for maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it's going to be a massive fight. The thing in terms of actually approaching this change, there's a few categories that you would kind of fall into. So firstly, you've got highly motivated and highly skilled. So if you're highly motivated and you're highly skilled, this is where most personal trainers, for example, would last. People like us who we know exactly what we're doing, we know how to train, we eat the way we eat. And if we're motivated, so if we say, right, I'm going in a 6 weeks cut, I'm really going to smash it, then that's where we fall in. We are highly motivated and we have the skills to back it up. You'll then have highly motivated and moderately skilled, and highly motivated and low skilled. And obviously, these terms aren't meant to be offensive in any way in terms of being low skilled. It's just saying how ready are you in order to approach this goal. And it could actually, this isn't unique to training or nutrition in any way, shape or form. You could actually apply this to anything that you wanted to do. You would then have moderate motivation, high skill, moderate motivation, moderate skill, moderate motivation, low skill, then low motivation, high skill, low motivation, moderate skill, and low motivation, low skill. So obviously, every single person's going to land somewhere on that. So if you're someone who eats quite well most of the time, you're pretty good, you do most things right, then you're going to be moderately skilled. You're moderately prepared to embark on this change. And if you're lowly skilled, for example, you don't even know how to cook, you order takeaways all the time, you don't even know what protein is, then obviously your chances of, as you start, you're going to be low skilled. So if you're someone who is highly motivated but low skilled, no matter how much you want to fix whatever problem you've got, no matter how much you want to change, it's always going to be very, very difficult, because you still don't necessarily have the skills there to put it into practice. And obviously the goal would be for someone in that position to slowly build the skills. So example, learning about the food, like these seminars have been doing, getting used to tracking your food, practicing cooking different types of meals. And as you slowly go from low skilled to moderate skilled to highly skilled, then your chances of actually getting long-term success are going to go through the roof. So I'm sure Ross won't mind us actually using him as a little bit of example here. So Ross doesn't run, we all know Ross doesn't run, but if he came out tomorrow and said, right, I'm going to train to do a marathon, and he was serious about doing it, then I would believe that he could do it. There's no reason that he couldn't do it, because if he was highly motivated to do it, and I'm sure he's got the skills to be able to put together a program and to be able to go out and do it. However, last year when he was building his sunroom, he'll be the first to admit that no matter how much he wanted to build that sunroom, he couldn't have done it. He just couldn't have done it because the skills to do it aren't there. And every single person, depending on what they're embarking on, will fall into these categories. It's like you can't do something if you don't know how to do it, or if you don't have the necessary skills to do it. And it's easy to sit there and go, oh well, they're just lazy, they just can't be bothered to do it. It's nothing to do with that. It's the fact that you have to get to the point in which you have the skills to implement that motivation. So depending on who you are, success looks very, very different. So success for someone who is highly motivated and highly skilled is entirely different to what would be successful for someone who had very little motivation and very little skilled. So like a highly skilled, highly motivated person would expect to do great things in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. Someone, no matter how motivated they were, if they were low down in terms of the skills and the abilities to do it, then success for them over that same period of time is going to look very, very different. It's going to be much, much slower progress. It's going to be focusing more on developing the necessary skills in order to be able to achieve what they want, rather than just going in at the deep end. Most people tend to be moderate motivation and moderate skill. I know everyone sitting there probably thinking, oh, I'm dead motivated, but in reality, most people spend a very small amount of time being highly motivated, ourselves included. You'll have periods where you're specifically focused on something, but they tend to be short periods, and that's just because there's only a finite amount of time that you can actually stay in that highly motivated zone. So most people are moderately motivated, they want to change, but they also want to go out with their mates on the weekend, and it kind of changes daily. I might have a breakdown on Sunday and be very, very motivated, but they go into the office on a Tuesday and someone's got the biscuits out, and then all of a sudden they're not quite that motivated anymore. And then they're also moderately skilled. The average person isn't a million miles away from where they need to be. They just need to start making small adjustments. But then you do get people who are on the other side of the spectrum. So everyone individually will know where they kind of fall on this, and depending on how far away from your goal you are, that'll probably give you a good idea of where you're actually at. So I think the main takeaways from what I'm trying to get at today are obviously respect the difficulty of the challenge that changing your diet actually is. It's not like people just seem to embark on a diet willy-nilly and expect it to succeed. It's like, this is a really, really hard, serious thing to do. It's something that 90% of people that ever attempt to do will fail to do. And obviously there's reasons for that. For example, as I said earlier, the standard fact that if you walk into most gyms or personal trainers' office, they'll hand you a diet plan, they'll set you on your way, and you've got no chance. You failed before you've even started, because no one, even, again, if we class ourselves as highly skilled, the chances of me being highly skilled and being able to go away and follow a diet plan infinitely is zero. I'm not going to be able to do that, because I'm like anyone, I'm human. Obviously, for us trainers, like, our normal and our habits and the way we kind of are closer to what they need to be to maintain our goals than someone who was just embarking on the journey. But we're still not perfect. No one's perfect. And again, the second one would be to set realistic timescales based on where you currently are. Again, like I said, I mean, if someone who's highly skilled and highly motivated then saying, right, I'm going to get lean in 6, 8, 12 weeks, then yeah, that's probably a realistic goal. But for someone who is moderately motivated and moderately to low skilled, then it's going to take a lot longer. But it's not like there's an alternative here. It's not like saying, oh, well, you could do this and get quicker results. It's why you see like people will maybe follow a diet plan for like a really strict crash diet for six weeks, and they'll lose 2-3 stone or something ridiculous. But they know they're going to put it back on because they've not actually addressed any of the underlying reasons that make up who they are and why they eat the way they eat. So eventually, as soon as they stop following it, which they inevitably will, because they're going to get bored, they're going to get fed up, it's not natural to them to eat like that, then it's just going to go out the window and they're going to go exactly back to where they are. So if you think of yo-yo diet, and the whole thing with yo-yo diet is you're constantly returning to this center point, and this center point is you. This is where you are. And the only way that you're ever going to get to the point where you can stay in shape consistently is by changing where this center point is. It's not by going out of it and coming back and going out of it and coming back and going out of it and coming back, and eventually that's just your whole life of yo-yo diet. And it's changing. It's attempting to slowly change who you are and the way that you look at food over time. And in order to do that, it's going to take baby steps. You're not just going to be able to read off a sheet and set yourself away. It's going to take tiny little changes all the time. For example, start tracking your food. Start looking at what's in food. That may take a year. You might even spend, it might take you that long to actually get to grips with tracking your food. Then after that, start thinking about training. Well, am I realist? Everyone starts training, and all of a sudden they're trying to do like training every single day, and eventually, but they've gone from doing nothing. Why not start with doing 1 session a week, or 2, or 3, or 4, and then slowly build up. There seems to be this trend of everyone wants everything now when it comes to fitness and training and coaching. This is why everyone sets themselves up to fail. If you think about it, if everything I mentioned before, it's the way that you view food. If you're just following a diet plan, it's not changing, because as soon as you stop doing that, you're going to go exactly back to where you were before. You need to actually embrace trying to change little bits all the time, and they need to become habits in order for you to stick to them consistently. I think I've pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover, so if anyone's got any questions, now would be the chance to get them in. Again, I hope none of this is supposed to be demoralising in any way, shape or form. It's just explaining the process that actually leads to successful dietary change rather than unsuccessful dietary change. And if we know that something fails, it seems pointless to keep going over and keep doing it again and again and again. It's about trying to work out a way that is actually going to breed success. So again, yeah, if anyone's got any questions, fire them in. Very powerful. Yeah, I had actually been really looking forward to doing this one, to be honest, because it's something that never ever gets mentioned. It never gets spoke about. And I don't understand that, because the problem is with this industry, with everything else, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, because obviously in order to be able to coach people, you have to be able to get business in. And the problem is, if you go out and do what we do, it's difficult to get business in for the simple reason that everyone wants the quick fix. But the quick fix doesn't work. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Emma, is this the same as comfort eating? Yes, that's exactly what we're talking about. So if somebody comfort eats, then there's a reason that they comfort eat. So obviously, again, how long's a piece of string? There could be a million different ways why someone comfort eats, but that's a habit that they'll have built their entire life. So it's something that you're always going to revert back to. We all have them. We all have little vices and little things, and we tend to find that, like, no matter how good we are, when things go wrong in our life, no matter, even like myself included, no matter how good we are, no matter how much we know, when things go wrong in our life, we still revert back to these things that have been part of us. And that's exactly where something like comfort eating comes from. And again, we talked about the environmental, culture, social. Somewhere amongst them will be the reason why somebody comfort eats. Again, without getting too deep on the psychology, there's 1,000,001 different reasons why someone would choose to comfort eat. But there's nothing wrong with it either. Yeah, Ross, I ate a shit ton of cheap noodles when I was young, and still to this day will not cut them out of my diet. And yeah, so the problem is, it's like, is it wrong for someone to comfort eat? Well, no, because that is part of who they are. So what can we do to address something comfort eating? Well, obviously starting to build awareness of what you eat and doing it. So if you're someone who's 1,000,000 miles away from where they want to be, they'll probably comfort eat and they'll probably not even realise that they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. However, as you begin to come more aware, you're going to become more aware that you're doing it. And again, the tracking's part of it. So even if you're comfort eating but you're tracking it, then you're starting to address the problem. And over time, all these little things to help these problems build up, and eventually you're much more in a much better place to combat them. Whereas when most people start off, they're not in a very good place to combat them. But yeah, it's definitely the type of thing I'm talking about here. Let's see, Sarah, it's a long one, so I'll try and read more. Yeah, again, so Sarah's saying about like the reason we eat how we eat, and that me and Ross tend to eat for like fuel. We'll sit and think, oh, I'm gonna have that protein bar because I need protein. Where Sarah's saying she tends to fall into the trap of eating just because she enjoys it or because it's something she wants. Let's have a look. Yeah, so left to her own devices mean nutrition would be a shocker. And again, that comes down to, there's a reason for that. So at some point in your history, you'll have developed the reason that you do that the reason that you view food in the different way, it'll be because of a reason. Everything we do tends to be because of a reason, and I'm not a psychiatrist, so I'm not going to be able to identify the reasons why people do and don't do these things. But like growing up, I always remember my dad's always trained, always exercised, always done something. So growing up, it would always be like, obviously it was a bit dated, but like, oh, I'm going to bike ride tomorrow, I'm going to have some pasta. So in my head, those little things over the years, like I remember him going to the gym and taking creatine and little things like that, and it's like, slowly but surely they're drip fed you as a child, and you see someone doing those things, and then you look 20 years down the line, and then yeah, when I look at food, I do tend to think of, ooh, what am I getting out of that? And this is when I talk about the individuality of it all. Every single, like, nobody, again, I go back to what I said earlier about the way that we speak. If I went and asked you, why do you speak the way you speak? You couldn't tell us, because it's something that you've developed your whole life, and all these things that have influenced, we probably can't remember half of the events that have influenced the way that we eat, but deep down in our minds, where we are influenced by them daily, because it's built up in there. Again, if anyone's got any more questions, bang them in. Yep, Ross always had fizzy pop in the family hole. Took 6 years to break the habit. Yeah, and again, like, that's probably a realistic timescale. Like, if it's something that's been there your whole life, then yeah, it probably will take you 5 or 6 years to actually stop doing that. So Sarah, my mum let me eat foods I enjoy. We don't. Yeah, so prime example, obviously, your mum let you eat food you enjoy. Thing is, as humans, we tend to have this really bad habit of when we love things, we feed them as a way of obviously expressing love. I don't know why we do it, but it's definitely a contributing factor to the way that a lot of people eat. Grandparents tend to be the worst culprits for it. I know at the point that I was at me fattest as a kid, I used to go to me grandma's after school and I used to get a cat plate, which was basically sat in front of the telly with a plate with just biscuits, chocolates and all sorts of crap on. Then I'd go home and have my normal tea. And still to this day, if I would come in and I sit down in front of the telly, in my head I still think, oh, I want something sweet. And there's no physiological reason for that, why I'm wanting that. People say, oh, I'm craving this, I'm craving that. Like, a lot of the times it's just because you associate certain foods with certain activities. It's like sitting in front of the telly on a Saturday night. Are you really craving the glass of wine? Or is it just because you associate having a glass of wine with sitting down? Salad cream sandwiches. I actually used to get salad cream on rich tea biscuits as a kid, and I've never met anyone else who's ever had that before. Everyone thinks I'm mad. Fish fingers and beans. Ah, yeah, so fish fingers and beans. So that's an interesting one, Sarah. You see, like, growing up, I was never ever given kiddie food. So like, my mum's quite old-fashioned, and so for our family meals, it would always be like a proper meal, like a shepherd's pie or a mince and dumplings or something. And like, if someone walked in now, and I'm like, when I finish this, I'm going to go down and get me tea. I don't know what Hope's made. And if I sat down and I got given chicken nuggets, chips and beans, I'd be absolutely mortified. However, I know people who love that food. They love it because it reminds them of being a child, because that was the type of thing they ate as a child. Yet to me, I look at that and just think, like, no chance they'd give us a proper meal. And again, this is what I say about it's being entirely individual. No other person on the planet eats the exact same way you eat. Every single person has little tastes and little traits. You'd be buzzing. And all these things, and this is what I'm saying, it all adds together to make up the way you eat and the reason that you eat the way that you eat. And in order to change that, you're gonna have to look deeper than just thinking, oh well, I'm just gonna follow a diet plan. It's a much more difficult process. Again, this stuff doesn't just I'm going to try and avoid going too far off track here, but it doesn't just apply to food, it applies to everything. For example, like growing up, my mum and dad would never sit and read. Really, they weren't big readers. And although I do read, I kind of have to force myself to. It's like something that's a little bit unnatural. I kind of have to take myself aside and say, yeah, you should do this. However, if you're brought up in a family where it's more normal to read a book than watch telly, then you're going to spend a lot of time reading because it's something that you view as being normal. And it's clear how these little things affect us all the time. It's like if you grew up watching your dad drink cans of Special Brew on the couch, then you're probably not going to sit there and buy an expensive bottle of wine and sit and pour out glasses, because like it's not normal to you. However, if you've grown up in a family where it's perfectly normal to sit and have an expensive bottle of wine, but then to sit and drink a can of lager on the couch is strange, and you think that was strange, and it's all part of what makes us individuals. But we have to understand this about ourselves, and we have to understand our individual flaws and failings before we can actually start to address making changes. Let's catch up on my comments, because I'm a bit... Yes, Emma, obviously we've had the conversation before about the old 8,000 calorie days. But yeah, so obviously to go from eating like that to eating the way you do now is a prime example of this, because you know yourself, and obviously I know it hasn't been something you've been able to do overnight. It's been little constant changes all the time, but because of where you were going to where you are now, it's took that long for those little changes to slowly add up and add up and add up and start to make the massive difference that they do. Mel, I'm lucky my husband is a chef. 7-year-old hates McDonald's, fish fingers. Yeah, one of the things actually that I found a little bit disgusting about the lockdown is the way that people have gone on about like fast food and stuff like that. I mean, to me, like I don't love like McDonald's and KFC, but I don't dislike them either. But like, if I was out and about and needed to get something to eat, then I wouldn't have a problem with going and getting a McDonald's or getting a KFC. But to see people literally queuing for hours and hours and hours to get a box of boneless chicken from KFC, like I find that utterly bizarre. But again, it all goes down to the individual and why do they place such high value on these things. Well, we lived on Tesco ready meals. Yeah, Mel, my fitness is definitely an eye opener. It's one of the best. It's why we love it so much. I know you probably get sick of us banging on about it, but if I could ask people to make one change more than anything else, even if they're not changing the food that they're eating, just track it. Because even just being consciously aware of what you're putting into your body will have massive knock-on effects. And it's mad because if I went over to someone and I give them a diet plan that literally said chicken, broccoli, this, that and the other, chances are most people would go away and they'd probably actually follow it for like a few days or maybe a week. They would at least attempt to follow it. They'd fail inevitably. Eventually they'd stop, but they would try. Yet when we tell people to go and track the food, a lot of people don't even bother doing the first day. It's like this is such a big part of a bigger process that like it's the starting point. Without that starting point, without even starting to look at your diet and what you're currently eating and where you're currently at, how can you even begin to make changes? So Sarah, I think this is taking time for me, but I'm an example of loving crap food. Yeah, and like I say, so Sarah's saying there, obviously, she eats crap food because she enjoys it. And we've already went over before the reasons why you enjoy that food. And the thing is, it's like, you know fine well that because that is so much part of you and ingrained into you, you're never ever going to stop liking that stuff because it's part of you. Like that boat's sailed. It's already in your head. That's who you are. But like you said, you've found a way in order to work around that to allow you to be in the shape that you are. And that's a prime example of there's only so much we can change about ourselves, but by finding out what our problems are, like I said, most people only need to change a few things in order to actually get closer to their goals. Ross only discovered that I won't eat real ham. My sister used to be like that. My sister wouldn't eat like proper meat. She would only eat processed meat. Yeah, Mel saying laziness can't cook, won't do. Yeah, cooking is definitely one of the skills. If you're brought up in a household where you're not taught to cook, then when you move out by yourself, what are you going to do? So obviously, I think I've mentioned before, like this year we've seen like ourselves moving our own house, quite a lot of our friendship group moving to our own house, and we can both cook, and we'll probably eat better now in our own house than we did previously. However, lots of other couples, they're moving in, they don't know how to cook, they've never been shown how to cook, so they're eating more takeaways than ever, they're eating more microwave meals, and they're piling the weight on because they simply just don't have, even if they want to, they don't have the skills to prepare the healthy food. Yeah, well, when I started losing weight, tracking really helped. Mel, obviously you're talking about affordability. See, I think affordability is a really interesting one because I don't like my own shopping. My own shopping bill could not be cheaper. Like I would put per person, I would put my shopping bill against anyone in terms of cost because we literally spend nothing. I think we know it normally costs us £20 a week each shopping. And that's everything that I need to pretty much eat my diet, like what I would need, so all the protein, fruit, vegetables, all that type of things. And like I said, that's the cost that most people, regardless of circumstances, would spend on takeaways and stuff. So I think although cost does definitely play a part, I think sometimes it's used as a bit of an excuse because, again, it might be expensive, but is it really expensive? And is it expensive on top of everything else you're already buying? I know this obviously doesn't apply to you. I'm talking about people who use that excuse. They say it's expensive, but is it expensive on top of everything you're getting, or is it expensive because it's something you don't want to buy, so therefore it pays expensive? But like I said, I mean, you can if you don't stop. Like I've seen families who say they can't afford to eat healthily, and then they'll get a takeaway that costs my entire food budget. Where do you shop? Pretty much Adult, Lidl, and Aldi. Lidl and the meat wholesalers. I do eat very basically, definitely not Michelin star food, but as I said, for me food tends to be more purpose. Yeah, any more questions, fire them in. I hope this has actually been a little bit more, a little bit eye-opening for a lot of people, because it's a sort of, it's looking at nutrition from a different way. It's not something that gets talked about often, but there's a whole bigger picture behind sort of the way that everyone eats. Everyone just thinks, oh well, I've got to take away for ease, but it's like there's a deeper meaning to everything you do. Yeah, being organised works definitely. Knowing what you're making and preparing stops you going to the biscuit cupboard. Yeah, so again, this kind of falls into the environmental side of things, because it's what have you got then? As I said before, when I was talking about Sarah saying, there's only so much you can change about who you are in the way that you view food, but you can change your surroundings. You can do all these things like prepare your food, like plan your meals, in order to help you stand a better chance of making these changes. Sarah, I hate Aldi. Yeah, Ross, don't have a biscuit cupboard. Again, a biscuit cupboard is probably a prime example. Why do people have a fucking biscuit cupboard? Well, have a biscuit cupboard because probably when they grew up, their house had a biscuit cupboard. It's something that's totally, there's no reason to have it. It's a strange thing to have, especially if you're trying to improve your health, but it's something that is just what you do because it's what you've always seen done. Oh God, don't get us started on the Aldi story, Mel. And any more questions, fire them in. Because I love biscuits. That wasn't directly at you, Paula. By the way, it was just an observation about sort of referring back to a point earlier on. Yeah, has a sweet drawer in a bedroom. Yeah, why would your child have a sweet drawer in the bedroom? It's also one of the things, I know it's a difficult subject to talk about, and it's probably not right coming from me given the fact that I don't have kids or a family really, but it always baffles me when it's like you'll see people come to the gym and wanting to make changes, or going anywhere, for example. You'll see people out exercising, doing all sorts, trying to improve their health, and the reason that they are trying to improve their health is because of everything I've mentioned previously. So it's how they've grew up, it's how they've seen their parents, it's how they've lived. So all of these factors that have created them, that have created the way that they eat, and that's therefore responsible for the state that they find themselves in. So they're clearly trying to fix this problem of a lifetime. They're clearly trying to exercise, to eat better, because the way that they have previously eaten, the way that they've been brought up, has led to them being either overweight or obese or unhealthy. but then you'll see them go to exercise and and then sit the child down and give them crisps and biscuits and all those types of things. And it's like, well, it's great that you're trying to fix yourself, but all you're doing is creating the same problem 20 years down the line when your child is then your age. And again, I know this is a really touchy subject, so don't come after us, but it's a point of, it's like, try to fix that problem now so they don't end up in the same situation that people find themselves in when they hit 30, 40 and they've never ate well their whole life, and then it starts to catch up with them. Try to help incorporate the changes when they're young, and then therefore history doesn't repeat itself. Yeah, and slight side note there. Anyone got any more questions? Make sure I've not missed anything. I'll get your last few questions in. Yeah, it's an ongoing mental battle, definitely, Emma. As I said, it's like what we're actually talking about here when we're talking about people changing how they eat and changing their diet, it's trying to change a massive part of your personality, and that's why I compared it to it. Like, if I set you the challenge of going away and speaking with a totally different accent to your own, how long do you realistically think it would take you to get to the point where you could consistently speak in that other accent without making a mistake, without reverting back to your current accent? It's a massive undertaking. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to change literally the way we've been for our whole lives. So yeah, it's always going to be a mental battle because you're constantly trying to fight what comes naturally to you. You're trying to do something different to the way that you will naturally always want to do it. It's arguably one of the biggest undertakings and changes that anyone can ever make, and obviously depending on where you fall on the scale of how far away you are from where you want to be, it's obviously going to be a bigger challenge or a smaller challenge. But like I said, the figures don't lie. There's a reason why 90% of people fail to do this. Yeah, it's a massive battle, but it's definitely one that people can do, and obviously it's all about trying to provide the tools and the knowledge for people to be able to do this. But in order to utilize those tools, I think it's important that people understand what the bigger picture is here and what it is they are trying to do, rather than thinking, well, I've tried to follow a diet, I've failed to follow a diet. Like, I failed. It's of course you're always going to fail to follow a diet plan, because as I said, it would be like giving someone a French dictionary and saying, okay, speak French. Well, it's never ever going to happen, is it? So yeah, it's definitely always an ongoing mental battle. And that never changes, even for any of us. No matter how far along that line you get, there's always going to be days that are challenging. There's always going to be times where you just think, oh, I could happily just go and order a takeaway or just sod it. And that never changes. It just becomes a little bit easier as you become more accustomed to doing it, and as we said earlier, as you develop those skills. Any more questions? See, I love this one. Thank you. Oh, any last questions before I sign off? I don't think there's anything I haven't covered, is there? Paula, no bother. You're more than welcome. I hope it's been helpful. Again, as with all of these, if you want to watch them back, they will be posted in the group. It's always, it's definitely always worth watching them back, as I know sometimes I go off on little tangents and I talk quite fast, so you might need to watch them back a couple of times to take it all in. Cool, I'll sign off then. Emma, you're more than welcome. Again, I hope this has been helpful. Mel, you're welcome. So I'll see you all later.